The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 380. And since I came back from my hiatus last September, I've been interviewing a lot of returning guests, and today is no different. A good friend of mine, and back after pretty much 2 years, I've got the One Man Armory BULLIT. BULLIT, great to have you back on the show. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Very good to be back. Yeah, it's lovely to speak to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you were telling me just off air that you returned from one of your international forays. You were being a visitor over to Vienna in Austria. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think when we last had you on the show, you hadn't yet made your international debut anywhere. But in 2024 and now 2025, you're becoming a bit of a regular, certainly over in Vienna. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so in Vienna, so in Austria, there's a couple of different promotions, but they've got really healthy relationships where they all work together, which is really nice. So like the first time I went over there was for a lad called Arno, and whereas the last two times I've been over there has been for Pray to Catch, and which works also with European Wrestling Association, which is Michael Kovac's company, and they work together, and Arno's always at the shows for Pray to Catch and likewise. And so and I met Kovac when I worked for Arno when it was for Pro Wrestling Österreich, and they're just really great to work for. Just really, really an absolute pleasure to work for. It's a nice bit of time away. I go with good people, you know. I was over there but last two times with Heidi Katrina. Not this time, but last time I was there with Yestin Reese, who's a good friend, and it was really nice to sort of spend some quality time with them. But yeah, you're just very well looked after, very well respected over there. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you know, and it's just, yeah, there's just no negatives. There's just no negatives to being out there other than the jet lag, which isn't really, it's not really jet lag. It's just like, it's how quick it is. I went out there first thing in the morning, Saturday morning, and I came home even earlier Sunday morning than I left Saturday morning. So, you know, it's lightning fast, but it's just always a really great experience. And this last one I went and did, where we were at Lugner City shopping mall, was just amazing. Like real proper first few WCW Nitro vibes, where it's a shopping mall and everyone's around you, and there's 4 tiers, and on each tier they're just all lined up thick around the balconies, you know. And when you I don't think I am wrong in speaking for most people, that when anyone who hasn't started wrestling yet, who wants to become a wrestler, when they imagine that moment where they're just stood in the middle of the ring and the crowd are just giving them everything, they look up. They don't look down at some people sat around the ring. And when you're visualizing that dream, your dream is to look up and see a sea of people because you're in the Astrodome, or to look up because you're in this really tall building where they're all bleached up around you. And that's what you get when you go and wrestle for you know, the guys over in Austria at that venue, because they're just lined up like a wall of people all around you, as well as the sea of people that are all around you on the floor. And yeah, they were really into the match as well. I got to work with some really good dudes. Yeah, it's nothing but fun, and it's such a good experience.
Yeah, and an experience you're looking to repeat through 2025 and maybe beyond. It sounds like you have a ton of fun every time you go over there, a great group to work for and a great crowd as well, but something you'd like to repeat, definitely more in 2025?
Definitely. I think one of the other reasons why the scene is so healthy in Austria, and the reason why the different promotions are happy to work with each other, is because nobody runs too often. Like that was the show. Like there was a show at the I think he only does like Kovac only does 3 shows a year. So that was his March show. Then he's got one in June, and then he doesn't have one until December. And the likelihood is I'll go back in December. But if something comes up, I might go back in June. But right now the plan is for me to go back again in December. I know that Arno's thinking of running in September. I don't know whether I'll be on that or not, but you know, they don't run just all the time and oversaturate the product. You know, like you've got to catch the wrestling while you can, and so people do. They come out and in good numbers, and you know they've got really good talent over in Austria as well. Really good talent. Like everyone looks the part as well. So many guys look like wrestlers. They make the effort to put, you know, they invest in their look and their gear and stuff, and you know they get good talent over there, and they have done for years as well. You know, James Mason and Doug Williams, who are 2 of our best sort of exports for like helping people and you know teaching people. They've both been going over to Germany and Austria for decades, and you can see their work paying off out there, because there's people that do things, you know, they probably learned from James, or they learned from somebody who learned it from James, or they learned it from somebody who learned it from Doug. So you know, it's recognizable patterns to what I do and how I work, and you know, and it's not just your normal universal wrestling language. It's specific things that you know you don't know until somebody teaches you. And they've got some really good talent out there that have learned that stuff and worked with those people. So it's class. It's really good.
Excellent. And for the next hour and 15, however long we've got Bullit, we're going to be talking everything from his run in progress, Wrestling Resurgence, ASW South, and so much more. And so WOS and that AA advert as well. We definitely want to talk about that. But we are live, of course. And for anybody at home watching this live Thursday, thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit that follow, that like, and that subscribe button so you can not miss out on any episode of Wrestling Resurgence. We got a whole list of fantastic UK stars coming up through 2025. And some of the guests that I've had already in 2025, really the cream of the crop. Not only do we have Bullit on today, but we started the year with Kid Lycos too. And January was also a fantastic month that included Charles Crowley. And then going into February, Liam Jones was on the show, one of the very best heavyweights in the country. And I'm sure he'll pop up in conversation a bit later on when we speak more to Bullit. Amir Jordan came on the show in February. What a fantastic guest he was. And last week, we had somebody that Bullit is very familiar with, former stablemate in Progress, Charlie Sterling. A fantastic hour-and-a-half conversation with Charlie Sterling, one half of the Progress World Tag Team Champions and the current and the first ever OTT European Champion. And our very next guest, now this is going to be next Thursday, so that's going to be Thursday the 20th. We got none other than Lucia Lee coming back onto the show. Now it's been 2 years since we've had Bullit on the show. It's probably been 4 years, if not more, since we had Lucia on the show. And in that time, she's grown into being one of the leading female wrestlers in the UK. So can't wait to speak to Lucia Lee next Thursday. But Bullit, back to you. And in the couple of years since we last spoke, and I think we clarified this to a certain degree before we went live, but this is your 8th year in the business. But you're welcome to kind of divulge and correct me further. But in the 2 years since you were last on the show, have we got are we looking at a different Bullit, a different One Man Armory in 2025 compared to the one we had in 2023? How have you grown and changed in these 2 years?
I mean, the realistic answer is I better be different, because if you're the same wrestler you were 2 years ago, then that's a shame, really, isn't it? More than anything, it's just a shame. But like, no, I definitely don't think I am. I think when we spoke, I was probably coming to the end of a really good 2 years, and I was like really in the mix of it. Whereas, I think maybe what I feel like I am as a wrestler hasn't grown as exponentially. From 2020 to 2022, there was ridiculously paced growth, and then from 22 to now, I think it's slowed down a bit, but it is still constant, and I love that as well. I love the moments that I still get every few weeks where I'd have had a match and when I was in Austria, James Storm was in Austria, and some of the advice he gave me was just like, yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And it's just, you know, you can just feel yourself almost literally physically growing, because that's like, I'm never going to forget that. That's going to be something I use. And I get moments like that every other week or every week with Joel, with James. I'm very lucky. I think the thing that's changed a lot in the last 2 years is how often I work with and for James Mason now, and how often I get advice, which is just the cream of the crop of advice. And so, yeah, just every time James tells me just another nugget of knowledge that I'm just like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That is. I'm just going to, and that's going to, not only is that going to change me doing how I did the spot that made him notice that I was doing it the way I was doing it, I'm going to use that now when I do this and this and this and this. And yeah, I never want to stop trying to be just slightly better and better and better and better, because the truth is, I mean, that makes it sound like I think that I'm a nearly full bottle, but we've got a few more drink. No, I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not, because that'd be really boring. It'd be really boring to like realize there's not actually that much left to learn. I just, you know, and there's more experiences to be had, so there's going to be more things to learn from that as well. Like, one of the things that I think even 2 years ago wasn't really that much of a thing for me. Like, it was probably more of a sort of, yeah, I'd do it if it came along, is Japan. Whereas now I actively want to go to Japan, and I'm trying to figure out with different promotions and stuff how it could work, because I can't spend too much time away from home. I can't. I just, my brain will turn into cabbage if I'm away from my wife and kids for too long. So, you know, I have to try and figure out how I'll be able to make a trip to Japan work without making it feel like it's just a in and out 2-week holiday.
Yeah, and we are now 3 months into 2025. This year is already going at blistering pace. But did you come into 2025 with a particular mindset on things you wanted to do, on how you wanted to hit the ground running, on maybe certain promotions you wanted to work for? But I mean, when you enter each new year, do you set yourself kind of goals and targets? And if so, 2025, did you have a particular mindset as far as how you wanted to tackle it?
Truthfully, 2025, yes, I think so. And you know, it's not as exciting as you probably would like it to be, but 2025 is my year for just enjoying what I do, and that's what all I'm going to really be doing from now on, because I turned 39 like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago I turned 39, and so, you know, I'm really getting to the stage now where, you know, and this could maybe transition into talking about Nikki, is, you know, I don't want to keep wrestling, and then when wrestling's done with me, or I feel like I am done with wrestling, and I've got all this time at home, my kids are too grown up, and I've actually missed too much time from when they were younger. So I am not actively looking. I'm not actively looking to try and grow how much I work and how often I work. I'm really quite happy working in the places that I work. I won't work in places that make me unhappy anymore. If it's stressful or I don't like it, then I just won't do it. It's not worth the time. There's no amount of money that's going to make it worthwhile to be away from my family, to be miserable. And so, yeah, and I just won't work in places that don't make me happy. Whereas right now, I think I do honestly work in the places that make me happy. So that's good. There are some places that I hope I get to work, but I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to do the groundwork, and that's, that's just me. I won't encourage that sort of attitude or behavior of any of the students at the school. That's where I'm at. That's pretty much where Joel's at as well. Joel just wants to concentrate on the school now and helping grow the students that we've got. And that's what I want to do. But I've still got more bumps to take than Joel has, because Joel's done exponentially more than I have. I'm actually a year older than Joel, but what we've done in our time when it comes to wrestling is not comparable. So I've still got things I want to do. But my main aim is to start to sort of slow down slightly. This year isn't going to be my year for slowing down. this is maybe me heading into my sort of like last few chapters before I slow down, I guess. But I'm not pushing things. No promotion's going to get a message from me begging for work, with one exception, and that's OTT, because that place is just the absolute bollocks. And I really want to work there.
Yeah.
Joe Cabray knows that as well, so it's up to him really. But like, and I hope we can talk again at some point, because Joe and I have had one conversation so far, but that's the only place that I actively want to try and get to. I'm not really interested too much in breaking into anywhere else and making it happen there. But that doesn't mean the answer is no if you ask me. It just means I'm not going to ask you, and that's fine if that means that it never happens. I'm very content with where I'm at now and where I've managed to get to in the short space of time that I've been doing it, because I think I told you the last time we spoke, really my only tick box was get paid to wrestle, and I accomplished that in 2018 or 2017, and so everything else has been a bonus. And so yeah, I don't mind where I go. If I never go to Japan, I'm absolutely positive that I'll be content with that. But I do want to go. I want to go. I want to know that I went, and I want to know that I wrestled there and stuff. So, and the States as well. I wouldn't mind getting a chance to wrestle in America and Canada, and that would be cool. And Mexico would be cool. But yeah, this is something that isn't news to me. It's not news to me, because I knew what the situation was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, was that I've left this too late. I've left this too late, really. And so I'm just enjoying what I can while I'm still able to do it, because the other thing that's happening with me turning 39 is things are hurting way more, and they're hurting for a lot longer. And I've got some pretty extensive, like, sort of constant pain that I deal with now in my hips, my lower back, my right shoulder's completely sort of effed at the moment, and I'm having to rehab that as best I can. I don't think I've blown anything out on it, but it's in pretty bad shape. And I'm not going to cripple myself doing this either. If I start to feel like my body's breaking down too much, I'll wave goodbye, and the only time you'll see me in wrestling is standing in the school coaching people for Joel. I won't be rolling around in there anymore myself, So that's where I'm at, to be honest, John. I know it's not exciting as, yeah, man, I'm going to do big things this year, but it's just that's the honest truth.
You alluded to a few exciting things there. Wanted to work for OTT. Can you imagine Bullet over in OTT? Can you imagine Bullet over in Japan? And if either of those two things play out, then I think that's something very, very exciting to look forward to while you've still got a few years left on your career. I'm going to bring up some pictures from Wrestling Resurgence now, because you are their current Arthouse champion. While I bring up these pictures, I'm going to kindly ask Bullet just to close down any additional apps he might have open on his phone, because his picture's lagging a little bit. So if you could do that while I bring up some pictures, that would be absolutely fantastic. But our guest, Bullet, the One Man Armory, is the current Wrestling Resurgence Arthouse champion. Now, he's been their champion for 578 days. We're going to talk about his reign. We're going to talk about all of that and the fantastic competition that we have to offer, or he has to offer over in Wrestling Resurgence. There's a few shots here. Let's say 578 days as the Wrestling Resurgence Arthouse champion. And I can see the man a lot clearer now. So thank you very much. I don't know what you did, but it seemed to do the trick. But first of all, I thought you might have. First of all, tell us a bit about Wrestling Resurgence, because you've been wrestling for them. I think you made your debut for them early 2023. So just after our first. And you've been a constant on every single show ever since. So for the last 2 years, you've been there every single show. Since then, you've become their Arthouse champion, 578 days, which is a phenomenal reign. But first of all, tell us a bit about the promotion and what kind of resonates with you about Wrestling Resurgence, and why it's such a special place, why it has been and why it still is a very special place for you to wrestle in on a regular basis, Bullet.
That's a really easy question to answer. So the way I actually even started wrestling for Resurgence was Spike Gervais got injured. I think it might have been his shoulder, funnily enough, that went, and he needed to take a bit of time off. And in the time off that he took, there was a full Resurgence show in Leicester. But before that, the Resurgence guys were part of a team of different groups. I know TK Cooper was one of the people that put on some of the matches with his friends, and Resurgence did a couple of matches as well. And it was a festival thing. It was like a comedy wrestling festival, and it was in North London. So I went and did that because whoever Simon was meant to wrestle, the person who was going to be in my match came out of that match and wrestled whoever Simon's opponent was, leaving a gap for where they were going to be in the match, which I then took. And that was, and I don't think you'll have a picture ready for this, but that was where I was dressed as a granny.
I don't have that one. I've got lots of pictures, but
Right.
I missed that one out. I don't know how.
Missed that one. So I was dressed as an old lady, like proper curly powder wig, pearl necklace, glasses, and like an old lady's dress that was, a 5XL that they managed to fit me into, and they cut the sleeves off. And that was a really fun match because it was me, Amira Blair, and Millie McKenzie against the late fantastic Curtis Chapman. And it was for the Arthouse Championship because Curtis was the champion. And Amira and Millie were fantastic in that match, actually playing old ladies, whereas I just was Bullet wearing old lady clothes because I'd snuck into the match because it was a bingo match. So whilst we were wrestling, we were also trying to play a round of bingo, and it went over really well. And the Resurgence guys just, I think, got more than they expected, because I've got some experience in doing comedy and stuff from where I've done previous acting work and things, and making funny videos with my friends. And so then only a week or two later, I can't remember exactly how long it was, there was meant to be a 6-man tag team match because the group in Resurgence was Spike, Tate Mayfairs, and Harry Singh. And Spike couldn't wrestle in that match either. So he brought me up because of the Progress connection. It wasn't too hard for the Resurgence crowd to just go, yeah, we've seen this on the internet. So me turning up made sense. So then it was myself, Tate, and Harry against the 0121, made up of Doris, Maloney, and Amari. And we had a cracking 6-man tag.
Yeah.
Cracking 6-man tag. Really one of my most enjoyable matches. Good friends with Maloney, so we have good chemistry. Good friends with Dan, so we have good chemistry. I think it was like the second time I'd ever met Amari, but he was fantastic to work with. Tate and Harry on either side of me doing their thing. They're both great. And it went down really well. So Resurgence had like 2 doses of me in a small space of time. And I think that's where the relationship started. And then they had me up, I think, once to wrestle. I can't remember what my second match was after that, because it wasn't soon after that they put me in a 4-way with Curtis again.
Yeah. And
Joshua J. and Franco Fate. And it was for the Arthouse Championship again. And that's where I won it. And
you've had it ever since, a year and a half down the line. Yeah. Let's talk about some of your defenses. I mean, one person I'm quite fascinated. You mentioned Spike there, and he was part of the reason why you started working for Wrestling Resurgence. Of course, that very strong connection from Progress, of course. But one of your title defenses was actually against Spike, and I've got some pictures here. Now, we clarified this before we went live, and I believe that this match here that I'm bringing up on screen was the first and only one-on-one encounter between Bullet and Spike Trevay, and it didn't happen in a Progress ring. It happened in a Wrestling Resurgence ring for your Arthouse Championship. So first of all, tell us a bit about that. Tell us a bit about that match and being able to work with Spike on opposite ends of the wrestling ring, and what it was like to actually mix it up with him as opponents.
I mean, it honestly, I talk too much as it is. I could probably fill an hour and 15 minutes talking about what it was like working with Simon, because it covers a lot, right? It's a lot. It was genuinely emotional working with him because, you know, I'm a lot to work with in a ring, and I don't, you know, I try not to be too heavy-handed and too leady with people, but you know, I don't want to hurt Simon. Do you know what I mean? But I did want to hurt Spike Trevay, so therefore that was something I had to try and walk the line of. And I was really proud of what we did, and I'm really proud of Simon. And I, you know, I still am. I feel like I feel like I miss Simon a lot at the moment, so it's a bit tough, really. And yeah, that match, I don't want to use the word bittersweet, but there was a certain amount of bittersweet to it because, you know, Progress and Resurgence were both the right place to do that match. We had a storyline reason for having the match in Resurgence, but we also had a storyline reason for doing the match in Progress. And bottom line is Resurgence got there first because they pulled the trigger faster. You know, it is what it is, not to use a bullet. But the thing that I think made it bittersweet was that it essentially marks the end for me and Simon, I think, is the honest truth. It made me sad about the fact that because we had that match, and it was a very sort of, we could bring it back up again, but you know, it was a bit of a chapter ending. It was a story ending match. Like, it definitely completes the story at Resurgence. There's no need to revisit it really at Resurgence. And because it hadn't happened at Progress, I knew that it probably meant that doing it at Resurgence meant that it wouldn't end up happening at Progress potentially. Yeah. And I think that's what made me sad, is that one of the best things that, you know, I've done since we last spoke was the stuff that I did with Simon. You know, we had such a great run together in Progress that was really enjoyable to do, just creatively fulfilling, you know, making a proper new friend. And yeah, I guess I didn't really feel like I was ready for it to be over. I think maybe what it was as well is that one of the things that was hard was that we had done so many storylines together in Progress. We didn't just do a match with Cara Noir. Do you know what I mean? He'd already started a story with Cara Noir. Then we did another part of the story. That was a couple of shows. Then it went away. Then it came back and was a couple of shows. It's the same with Maloney. He didn't just wrestle Dan. He wrestled Dan, but the story into wrestling Dan took place over 3 or 4 shows. And I always imagined that that's what would happen with me and Spike, would be that we would get to the point where we tell the story of me versus him, and it would happen over a period of time. We would run a program together, as it's referred to. And we didn't. We did actually. We cut promos with each other. You know, not to correct you, but I have missed one show for Resurgence, and it was actually the one before the match with Spike, because I was on holiday with family. They ran a show in the August, and I was away on holiday, so I couldn't make it to that show. And he wrestled Franco Fate on the show, and then cut a promo about me to continue to build towards the match. So we did build to the match, and obviously the stuff that we had done with me working for him and stuff had built up that story. Like I said already, we did have a reason to do that story in Resurgence, but I really thought we'd tell our own tale, like the ones we told at Progress together, and not just the two of us, but with, you know, all those different people that either he or we had matches against. And yeah, it was the realization when we had that match that it was kind of the end of it. It was all going to be over after that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to circle back to Progress in a bit and talk a bit more about your run there and the group and kind of the stories that you were a part of, the incredible stories that you were a part of during that time, and what the future might hold, if anything, in a Progress ring. But we'll discuss all that in a minute. I want to stick with Wrestling Resurgence, and obviously we just spoke about Spike as one of your opponents that challenged for your Arthouse Championship. The other person that we have to bring up is this guy here. And it's Mike Bird, of course. And you've had 2 fantastic matches with Mike Bird. I think you won the first, and the second one went to a time limit draw, if I'm not mistaken. And you're building to a third one in a short space of time, which we'll talk about. But I think when we talk about kind of classic matches and kind of the story and the battles that you and Mike have been through in a Resurgence ring, I think he'll go down as possibly one of your toughest challengers, certainly for that group.
Definitely. I mean, he's first class, really. Mike Bird is.
And he doesn't get spoken about enough, does he? He doesn't get spoken about, about exactly how good he is and what legacy he's going to leave on the British wrestling theme when he finally hangs up the boots. But you two just went to war in them 2 matches and left so much on the table for that third match.
No, I'm joking. No, yeah, he is. I agree, but I think he's in the same category as Eddie Ryan and Joel Redman in that aspect.
Yeah.
Is that they're just really fantastic wrestlers. Everything's really crisp. It's not just that they're good at technical wrestling, it's that they're good at every facet of the match. Do you know what I mean? They know exactly when and why to do what they do, and they know exactly how to do it the best it can possibly be done. And so for me, the thing I love about wrestling, Mike, is I've got loads of experience wrestling fantastic wrestlers, but how much do I have on the independent scene, which you might also know as the internet scene? Yeah. Because you'd be quite fair in thinking that I barely work over the last year, but I haven't, because I'm always wrestling with All Star, Kick Out, and wrestling for James. Like you said, I've been over to Europe a couple of times, and then I still pop up on certain indies, right? But how often do you get to see me wrestle Joel Redman at Progress or TNT or Resurgence? You don't. How often do you get to see me wrestle Eddie Ryan? You don't. But you do get to see me wrestle Mike Bird at Wrestling Resurgence. Yeah. Because that's the other reason why I love wrestling for Resurgence, is I think people think that they're just an art house crowd, but they're not. They're one of the best shows for completely different matches all the way through the show that offer lots of different things that make wrestling fun to watch. So you can come to Resurgence and you can see a high flying match, but you can also come to Resurgence and see some fantastic, acting essentially, but they're still as part of the wrestling from Crowley or Spike, as well as the other people that are there, people that can make you laugh like Crowley or like Gene Money. But then you can be blown away because Ojmo's been up there, Michael Oku's been up there while I've been up there as well. It's and some of the best women wrestle at Resurgence as well. Like every time I've been at Resurgence, there's been at least 4 top female British talent in the locker room at the same time. I say the locker room, it's the big gymnasium that we all get dressed in under the theatre, but like it's a really good mix of talent. And so what they do give you is one of the best technical wrestlers that you can watch against the best heavyweight in the UK. So that's what you get to see, right? You get to see the guy that does big man better than anyone fight me against 1A, B, and C of the top technical wrestlers that you can watch in this country. So it's Resurgence.
Unique matchups you wouldn't see anywhere else. Unique matchups you wouldn't see anywhere else in a company that really does do true, variety shows. But the match we have to look forward to is that third match between yourself and Mike. And this one here, March the 22nd. So just 10 days around the corner. And it's billed as Bullet Bird 3. No time limit this time. So, of course, your last match, I think, ended on was it a 15 or a 20-minute time limit draw. But this is kind of the rubber match for your Arthouse Championship. With it being a no time limit match, I mean, there's no kind of specific gimmicks involved or a specific stipulation apart from you guys can just go for as long as you need to go until you get one winner and until the referee raises the hand of the champion, whoever that might be. How do you foresee the match going?
Painful. It's gonna. You just reminded me that I'm well overdue doing about 100 burpees a day in preparation for that match.
How is your stamina?
Enough. Like I say, I'm really struggling with a shoulder injury at the moment, so I better pray that goes away well, that I can get back to work, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be hard work in all the right ways. People that work in the business know that when you say it's going to be hard work, that's actually a bit of a dig at your opponent. It's not a dig at Mike. It's not hard work in an annoying way or an unenjoyable way. It's hard work in the best possible way. And that's what I'm proudest of with the matches with Mike, is that every time I've wrestled Mike at Resurgence, afterwards everyone's just gone, I just can't believe you guys just did that. And they're not saying that because we broke the world on moves, because they don't matter. We didn't tell a particularly different story. We just told it as hard and as viciously and as competitively as we possibly can. And we'll do that again. We'll just do that again on the third one, and it will be all the bells and whistles. And I am looking forward to it, but I'm also looking forward to it being over. Really.
Well, I suppose the tactic you need to adopt is to try and get it finished as quickly as possible. Don't let it drag out. End it in 5 minutes.
You think I haven't tried doing that the last 2 times?
Well, we look for it's going to be the Y Theatre again, isn't it, in Leicester? But that venue is very, very special, and I know very, very close to your heart. And that match is going to be fantastic. I'll bring up the graphic one more time. The greatest grappler, Bullet versus Bullet Bird 3, no time limit for the Arthouse Championship. And just go to Wrestling Resurgence's socials. Click on the links and get your tickets for today for March 22nd, the next show, The Greatest Grappler. I want to circle back to Progress now, Bullet, because we touched on it earlier on. I'm going to bring up some pictures of you and the guys, Dominatus Radium, and you guys ran Roughshot for a couple of years in Progress with the Smoking Aces. Now they're 3 times World Tag Team Champions in Progress, but throughout the majority of that run, they would have been Tag Team Champions, and Spike as one of the longest reigning men's world champions in a Progress ring. Certainly after the pandemic, I think 700 plus days for Spike. But when we look at kind of your most enjoyable times in Progress, and I'm bringing pictures up here of when you battled Big Damo, my first question to you regarding Progress is about Big Damo, because when you were last on the show, we were kind of always fantasy booking a potential match that, was probably only just being considered a match between yourself and Big Damo as the 2 biggest and best heavyweights in Progress. And that was, like I say, just between the 2 of us, fantasy booking. You said that it was on Progress to make it happen, and it did happen. And I think it was a Sheffield show, September 2023. You did have a multi-man match as well, Sanity versus Dominatus Radium, yourself and the Aces. But regarding yourself and Damo, do you think there's kind of money left on the table where there could have been more to be had between yourself and Damo? And of course, we never saw the 2 of you get to wrestle in a one-on-one in Camden in the Electric Ballroom. So obviously, that was left on the table. But were you satisfied with the matches that you did have with Damo?
Okay, so let's keep things positive and say There's fuckloads of money left on the table for me at Progress. And that's all I have to say about that. So in answer to your question about me and Damo at the ballroom, that means obviously yes. But to keep things positive, my time in Progress, fantastic. Yeah, I am satisfied. That match up in Sheffield was great. Wrong location, but it was still good. It was still, Sheffield turned up and they were a great crowd. They just watched a match where they didn't know what the build-up was. And also the people in Sheffield, Progress fans in Sheffield, had never seen me before. So there was only a handful of people there that had a clue who I was. But the match we gave, I'm still proud of, and I still happily go back and watch on the Progress on Demand. But to go ultra positive, the 6-man with the Aces and Sanity is my favorite match that I was involved in at Progress.
Really?
Sorry, no. Let me make that specific. There's specifics there. That was my favorite match that I wrestled in at Progress, because Eric Young was legitimately one of my favorites. I've just been a massive Eric Young fan for decades, and so that was a pleasure. I wanted one thing out of that match, and I got it. And you might have you got a picture of EY elbow dropping me?
I don't believe I do. I've got some pictures of yourself and EY, but please elaborate.
That's what I wanted. That's all I wanted. I knew that I could trust Rob Razor to get the shot if we put it in the match. And so we did. I'm actually pinning Damo, draped over him like that. And I'm looking up whilst I'm pinning Damo, and EY's coming off the top with the elbow. And that's what I wanted. And not only did Rob Razor not let me down, he, in typical Rob fashion, gave me more than I asked for and got the perfect shot of that moment happening. That's probably going to get framed and put up in here at some point in the office. But that was my favorite match that I wrestled in. Out of all my matches, that was the one, because it was a chance to wrestle Damo again, and this time in the ballroom. It was a chance to wrestle Axel, who I think's fantastic. And it was a chance to wrestle Eric Young. And I spoke to EY in the back afterwards, and he tried to stop me from saying this because he was like, "No, man, you've got time." And I said, "No." And I said to him, wrestling you is as close as I'm going to get to a Shawn Michaels getting to wrestle Ric Flair. All my heroes have gone. They're all retired, or I'm just never going to get to see them. So wrestling EY was really quite a pinnacle moment for me, and I loved it. And to bring it up, because it's to make why I had to make the distinction of my favorite match that I was involved in. My favorite match that I was involved in was when Spike wrestled Tom Dawkins for the last time, because he won the right to be Cara Noir back at the end. And Claire Dawkins was involved in that match as well. And between the four of us, I think that was probably a peak moment in Progress for me personally, and for the four of us, and for that storyline. They did the cage match afterwards, which was, we know, right? It took a lot out of both of them, especially Tom. But thank God he's back now. But that moment we had, the last 15 minutes of that match, I'm not gonna keep it a secret. I have watched that multiple times because of how proud of it I am. I just love watching it. Like, it is so fun to watch the whole match from start to finish. I think it is peak Progress, really. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was the one and only picture I've got of yourself and EY in the ring. I neglected to put the picture up of the elbow drop. Must admit, I couldn't find it before we went live, but I didn't realise until you explained there what a proud moment that was for you. And another really cool moment, and a couple of matches that a lot of fans kind of hark back to during your Progress run, was with Kid Lycos 2. your archetypal David versus Goliath storyline. You got the first win in Birmingham, which I was at and I saw, and that was quite a dominant win. And then I think it was the semi-final match before the Twisted Metal Steel Cage match where Kid Lycos beat Spike to become the world champion. And of course, Kid Lycos got his win back against yourself that night in the ballroom. But I think, you know, that David and Goliath storyline, it works generation after generation, year after year. But I think the two of you had great chemistry, and especially being involved in that Spike and Kid Lycos storyline as like, you know, the undercard attraction to that storyline, all within, you know, all bubbling in Dominatus Radium and Lycos Gym. But that's certainly a couple of matches and a storyline and a feud that are very fondly remembered for your time in Progress.
Definitely. Joe's the man. Yeah. It was a real pleasure working with Joe. Every single segment I did with Joe was great. Every match that we did together was great. The match we had in Birmingham where I essentially tortured him, you know, that caught the eye of so many different people.
That was ferocious. It
was horrendous, but you know, artistically it was fantastic. You know, I just really, you know, I enjoyed the art that day, but you know, I really did. And you know, Joe's just so good. He's just so good. And I agree with you. We had great chemistry. I feel like I felt like this doesn't make any sense apart from spiritually. Wrestling Joe was like wrestling myself, because I never once picked up Joe or had Joe pick me up and go, "Where are you going?" I knew exactly where Joe was going, and I knew exactly how Joe was going to go wherever he went, and I knew how fast he was going to get there. Do you know what I mean? And he was just so easy in that sense to work with because he's such a pro. And yeah, and the you know, the peek behind the curtain comment is as well as that so many wrestlers know one of the things that's equally as satisfying as pinning somebody 1, 2, 3, crowd goes wild for you, is lying there getting pinned 1, 2, 3, crowd goes wild for your opponent. It's just as satisfying, and lying there and hearing that crowd go absolutely mental, just deafeningly loud when Lycos 2 pinned me. And that was the first time anyone had pinned me in first and only time anyone pinned me in Progress. And it was really great. It was really great. I was really, really proud of it, and proud of Joe as well. I just think he's the man. And I haven't been there, but I get things fed to me, and from what I've got fed to me, he just hasn't stopped that momentum as well. Like, he's still just as over, he's just as popular, and he's just as appreciated, and he's still having great matches after great match after great match. So I'm really, really proud of Joe for that. And I'm really happy for Joe for that. And I did see Joe towards the end of the last year and gave him a cocky little, "You're welcome. You're welcome for being as over as you are now. You're welcome." But
yeah, some might say it did help to make him. It did help to make him for sure.
Yeah. Yes, but it's helping. Do you know what I mean? It's not doing, and he did it. And yeah, he really is. He's such a good guy, such a good dude. And again, the bittersweet thing about it is that I don't think I'll ever wrestle Joe again at Resurgence, because I don't want to. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me now, it's a case that, you know, Lycos 2 has earned Bullet's respect to the amount that if he ever needs anything, he can give me a call. Do you know what I mean? If anyone's ever given Lycos 2 too hard a time, and, you know, the original Kid Lycos can't help him, you know, there's other friends that he's got in the business that he can call on if he wants to, because I'll come and help him out.
Absolutely. Let's bring up some pictures. And I think this is possibly from your Birmingham match, and an absolute ferocious match. But he did get his win back. Kid Lycos 2 did get his win back in the ballroom, getting too far ahead of himself there. But I did speak to Kid Lycos 2, as I mentioned at the top of the interview, back in January, so go and check that one out. But just very, very briefly, for you, go on. Say that again.
Was he nice about me? Lycos 2? Was he nice about me?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%, 100%. What I can remember. But just very, very briefly, do you think there's still, money left on the table as far as Bullet and Progress Wrestling is concerned? And like I say, do you foresee a possible run in the future? Are there matches that you still want to have, but is there still money on the table for with Bullet and Progress?
Yes.
There you go. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. Watch your space, ladies and gentlemen. We keep our fingers crossed. But I want to talk about Nick Riley. You mentioned it earlier on, and one of your stablemates from Dominatus. And I was at the show, the Pro Wrestling Chaos show back in February, where he announced his retirement. And he's got his final ever match, April the 26th. In a Chaos ring, but his final ever match as one half of the 3-time Progress World Tag Team Champions takes place on March the 30th, when the Aces take on Sunshine Machine. But just your thoughts, and obviously, during, obviously with your run as part of Dominatus reigning over them 2 or 3 years, you got to know Nick Riley very, very well. I don't know whether you knew him much before your run in Progress, but your thoughts on Nick Riley kind of stepping away from the business, hanging up the boots at the end of April, and what does that mean to you?
I'm really proud of him. That's what it means to me, is that he's one of the only people in this business that can sort of appreciate what I go through, and I can appreciate what he goes through when it comes to time away from his children. And there was the absolute shoot with what he said in Chaos, is that he's a dad first before he's a wrestler. And I'm really proud, because this business is a fucking hard thing to get into. But if you're lucky enough to get into it in any sort of capacity that's enjoyable and has meaning, then it's really, really difficult to walk away from. And he hasn't found that easy. I have known Nick for a good few years now. He was my my partner. He was my tag team partner on Joel Redmond's Stag Do, when we went and played pub golf and we got paired off. And one thing I can tell you about Nick Riley is that he's shit at drinking, and he was a nightmare of a partner. And I had to carry him on my shoulders, I think at one point, literally, not just figuratively, because of how useless he is, especially when a drink's got bubbles in it, then he's really crap.
Was this over in Malta by any chance?
Yeah, it was in Malta, yeah. And yeah, that was a massive bonding moment for me and Nick, and that stag do happened before the Dominatus Reigning thing kicked off as well. So by the time Dominatus Reigning came around, Nick, Charlie, and I had spent that week, that sort of weekend in Malta together, and been on a couple of other shows with each other. Charlie turns up for All Star sometimes, and he also does the kick out shows at Butlin. So I see Charlie more at work than I do Nick. I see Nick more at work and social events. But I love Nicky to death. I really do. He's one of my favorite people that I've met on this journey, and I'm just really, really, really proud of him for being, being brave enough and strong enough to walk away from this.
Yeah.
When he's not in a position that like he probably has to or should. Do you know what I mean? Wrestling wise, but personal reasons wise, and valuable time with his family. I'm really proud of him. He's doing something that, quite frankly, I'm not quite ready to do yet. But I will do one day. And when I know I'm going to do it, the first person that I will call, because I will still be talking to him and he will still have his number saved in my phone, will be Nick Riley. I will call Nick Riley when I say it's time for me to go. What do I do? There it is.
100%. Yeah, top man.
That picture you showed before of the two of us on the stairwell, I think is my most liked picture on Instagram.
It's a class picture. It really is a class picture. And of course, that's when you covered for Charlie Sterling when he was out injured. But some great pictures there. Great guy. And a bit of an exclusive. I will be having Nick Riley on the show in April, just before he steps away from the business, to get his insight and first person perspective on, because of course he's a former guest, so I have to have him back on the show. But it's quite apropos that he will be hanging up the boots at the end of April, and I'll be having him on the show that very same month. But talk to me a bit about heavyweight wrestling, because I know that we spoke about heavyweight wrestling back in 2023 when you were last on the show, Bullet. Well, in your mind, what's the current state on the UK scene, or maybe further afield as far as heavyweight wrestling is concerned? Because of course my jam is tag team wrestling, and of course I'm a massive fan of heavyweight wrestling. When you get two big guys in there, or like we explained earlier, the David and the Goliath story that could be told, and the action that can be had in those sort of stories. But you being one of the best, if not the best, heavyweights in all of the UK and Europe, what's your perspective on heavyweight wrestling in 2025? Where you feel it's at the moment?
I think it's doing better than it was doing, but it's still not doing as well as I'd like it to do. I do feel like there are certain occasions where the idea might come into somebody's head to use me, and then they go, oh, but we kind of need him to lose, so we won't use him. Or, well, we need him to look strong, and he won't if he's in a match with Bullet. And the reason for that is because they're not an actual heavyweight, or they're not actually that big. And it's quite to me work. Do you know what I mean? Somebody, like I said earlier on, a lot of the guys in Austria are massive, right? I'm not as much of a giant in Austria as I am back home, right? And one of them made a point, which I got to agree with. It sounds like sour grapes, but I got to agree with it. Because they were an older wrestler like myself. They were I think a little bit older than me. I think they're about 43, and they said when I first started, you couldn't wrestle unless you were big enough. Now you can't wrestle if you're too big. And that's not true all the time, but people that might disagree with that are kidding themselves, because they know it's true. They know it's true that there are certain people in this on the scene, like Yeston, where they go, well, I can't put him against Yeston. Do you know what I mean? Yeston will just eat him up. Do you know what I mean? People, the crowd will just watch that match and go, well, Yeston's just going to kill him. Yeah, because he probably would. Do you know what I mean? Like, wrestling's meant to be fun. Wrestling's meant to be a whole different, eclectic mix of things. It's meant to cover loads of different things. But the other thing it's meant to cover is kids watching superheroes and putting on tights that look like superhero tights doesn't make it the same thing. Looking like a superhero and moving like a superhero is what makes the kids go, Jesus Christ. That's like watching somebody out of a film. And that's what heavyweight wrestling always was. Larger than life people. Larger than life people. Do you know what I mean? Not just big personalities, not just big moves, larger than life people. And I think all I want, John, is I just want the space to be shared properly. That's all I want. I want the right amount of space on every single show for proper heavyweight wrestling. I want the right amount of space on every single show for high flying wrestling, technical wrestling, women's wrestling, hardcore wrestling, comedy wrestling. I want it all. I want every single show to give the equal and right amount of space, because one thing that is the absolute worst show you can go to is a show where all the matches are the same.
Yeah. And all the wrestlers look the same and do the same moves. Yeah.
Watching the same moves happen over and over again on the same show as well. What a terrible show. That's not the best wrestling. Do you know what I mean? And especially if it's a show where there's 1,000 moves in each match, that's not the best wrestling. Do you know what I mean? It's just a mix would be much more enjoyable, not just for family shows, for everyone. Everyone would enjoy it more if they got to see variety when they come to a wrestling show.
Yeah, those are the best shows, the variety show, 100%. Moving on from that, and thank you very much for your perspective on heavyweight wrestling in 2025. And I'm sure I'll ask you the same question when we get you on for part 3 in 2 more years' time. But I want to talk to you about ASW South now. And of course, you're closely associated with the school, of course, the unit down in Salisbury, but you're even more closely associated with the shows. And of course, ASW South, they hadn't run a show when you were last on Wrestling Resurgence 2 years ago, but in that time, they've not only kind of opened their new units, but they've ran 7 shows, 6 student showcases as well, Bullet. And like I say, you've been on each of the 7 main shows. You are the current ASW South British champion. And like I say, I think you speak about variety shows. I think that's certainly what you get with an ASW South show. And it's got a real mixture of some of the best pros in the country coming down, like yourself, for example, to showcase the key matches on the ASW South's main card, but they also use a great mix of some of the top students that are trained with yourself and Joel and the fantastic team down in Salisbury. Tell us a little bit about the shows that you've been a part of, because as I said, they always deliver. I know they do the student showcases, but everybody on both cards, each time they perform, deliver 1,000%, don't they?
Yeah, because out of the respect for Joel Redmond, right? You know, that's the sort of ethos of the school, is that we've got outwork everyone written on the wall, because that's the ethos of the school. And so therefore you work as hard as you can on those shows, no matter what your role is. If you're the main event, you put everything into it. But if you're match one, you put everything into it. And, you know, nobody leaves anything behind when they go in the ring on those shows. And yeah, Joel is very proud of the team. I'm very proud of the team as well for my part. And with the student showcases, I'm not always there for them, because especially when we run any sort of July or August or September shows, sometimes I'm actually working for James Mason in the afternoon, and then I come and do the evening show. Whereas the last 2, because they've been around the sort of more Christmassy time, I've been able to be there for the student showcase, and I now am basically I'm like the producer, I'm the showrunner essentially. I sit backstage, the sort of go position, and I take it very seriously. You know, I've got every match written down on a sort of notepad with space underneath it. I sit and I watch the matches. I time the matches so that the students are learning to stick to time, for when they hopefully one day wrestle on TV and get to realize how important sticking to your time is. I can literally hear Tom Scarborough and Oscar Harding just clapping right now about sticking to time. But yeah, and I take down notes. So I've always got a monitor in front of me, and I watch the matches and I write down notes. And so before everyone goes out for their match, I've got what I need them to do from either myself or from Joel, as to what they need to do in the match. So they will get given some last minute notes. Remember, guys, when you go out there, just keep working this, or make sure you do this, make sure you do that. They then go out, have the match. I write down notes. And then when they come back, they very, very quickly get feedback, because I've got to give them their feedback, move them on, give my note to the next match that's going out, and then set the timer back up and watch them and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, but I've still got the notes there, so that when the show's all finished and we've got that gap between the showcase and the evening show, then I can maybe go over things in a bit more detail with people, and give them, you know, the full feedback. But yeah, they are. You're absolutely right. They're doing us real proud. Like I can say that the last 2 shows that I've done that for, there's been, I mean, the last student showcase had 40 matches or something. I can't remember what it was. I think it was 9. One match on that card went over, and the show before, one match went over. And when they went over by about 28 seconds. Everybody else was at time almost exactly, or just under. So when we're teaching that and in the classes, they're learning their body clocks really well, which is great. And yeah, they're doing the thing is, I'm really blunt. as people know, if anyone knows me, I just don't really mix things up. So I'm just going to say how it is. I'm not going to blow smoke and say that the matches are the best matches you'll ever see. But one of the things that they are doing is they are entertaining crowds every time, and they are giving 100% every time. Not one person can walk out of that showcase feeling like they just didn't really try hard enough, and that's the reason why anything negative, like they all absolutely give it everything they've got on those shooting showcases. And I think that's the example that's led by what they see in the evening shows, because everyone who's on in the evenings, with the exception of when Charlie was there, James Mason, Mark Haskins, Eddie Ryan, when those pros have come in to work with people, they give 100%. But they're also on shows where they see everybody else on the show just giving absolutely 100%. And that's all Joel ever asks for. It's just for 100% effort. That's it. It's just, always just try and do 100%. Because if you don't, the only person you're really letting down is yourself, right?
Yeah. And just kind of switching back to the schools and the shows as well, I suppose. But every time there's an ASW South show, there always seems to be kind of a new face or several new faces featured on the card, or possibly even the student showcases. But you just seem to have this conveyor belt of producing fantastic, captivating, talented young wrestlers through that school. And so I went down for the open day. Must have been good 2.5 years ago now. I can't remember, maybe closer to 2. And the faces that were there then, there's still a few familiar faces, but you seem to have kind of rotated through a few other new batches of fantastic stars through to what we have now. And I'd say the majority of the talent that you're producing down there are now working on shows in the South or the Southwest, maybe on the ASW South shows. But I'd say there just seems to be this conveyor belt of producing fantastic young talent at the school.
Yeah, that's what I think Joel's probably most proud of, and we're not done yet. We're not done yet, because there's more to come. There's more new students coming in all the time. There's more new students welcome all the time, and everyone works together as a team to pull each other up. It's not just down to the training they get from Joel or myself or from Niwa or from Bobby Vegas. They get it from each other. They pull each other up, right? But we're not done, because those students that you would maybe, we're not going to name names so that nobody feels good or bad, right? But those students that are the top students, they're not finished yet. Like, we've still got more to do with them, because they have got big things to achieve. And then there's going to be that is then the target going forward. Right now, all the students, their targets trying to achieve what I've done, or better than that, what Joel's done, right? Or what Niwa's done, right? Niwa with his international wrestling, Joel making it to the WWE. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me is those that are actually concentrating more on trying to make it a little bit more in independent wrestling. They're not so enamored with WWE, or they're maybe setting themselves more realistic expectations, because they don't think they'll ever get WWE or international. But they do want to make a good scene. They do want to make a good name for themselves on the scene, at least, right? Whereas what the students are going to accomplish, what our top students are going to accomplish, will set the new standard for what those other students want to do and what they want to achieve. Do you know what I mean? Because they're going to go to the top. And when they go to the top, you'll know where they came from. So that's what we're still really excited about, is that, yes, you're absolutely right. We are very lucky with the extreme numbers that we've got of talent, really talented or really great prospect trainees. But yeah, we're just getting started with how far we're going to be able to try and help students get in the business. And that's what I'm really excited about. And that's my main focus for the next however many years, is to do whatever I need to do to help Joel make that school the best school that it can possibly be. That's my main aim now, really.
Yeah, nothing but impressed, nothing but impressed. And I'm sure if you want to reach out to ASW South and if you want to become a trainee there, just go to their social, send them a DM. They'll be happy to get back to you and line something up, I'm sure. I want to quickly touch on WOS, the return. I'm going to bring up some pictures and some pictures of yourself, Yeston Reese, and Shah Samuels, the cartel. And of course, you were there in Norwich, which was where the tapings were several years ago, and again last September. But I think you kind of taped 2 or maybe 3 shows on that Saturday afternoon. But the production was fantastic. The talent was absolutely stacked on that roster. You couldn't kind of handpick a better roster than what was selected for that WOS, the return tapings. And the action was absolutely at its finest. Tell us a bit about your WOS, the return experience then, Bullet, and kind of, what's your main takeaways from those tapings?
It was a really great experience. It was a really good team. Like it was a banging team. For me personally, I got to have 2 really cracking matches with 2 of my favorite people to work in Eddie Ryan and Adam Maxted. I loved working with those 2. Just very immediate and easy chemistry, really great wrestling. Like working with Mike Bird, like working with Mike, like working with Joel, just pushes you, right? Just makes you want to be the best you can be wrestling those 2. But then also being in the group with Shah and Yeston, 2 people that I also just have bundles of respect for, and just got to sit under their learning tree for a couple of days. And yeah, just fantastic. They've got so much that they can teach the pair of them. I think yeah, if I was a billionaire, John, I would set up a super center in the middle of the country, and those people that I just named would be basically your training staff. Do you know what I mean? Just that every day of the week you can go to a Shah Sam, a Yeston, an Eddie Ryan, a Joel Redmond, a Niwa. Do you know what I mean? You could just go and train with those guys every day of the week. One of them will be there. They only have to work 1 day a week, but that's what I would have. I would just have the monopoly of the best talent that can train people how to be great wrestlers. And yeah, they've all got different things that they can bring. So that's the main thing. And also the experience of working a live TV show, because that's how it was filmed. It was filmed like it was live. That was a real buzz for me, was doing the match, getting backstage, standing in front of the wall with the World of Sport, the WOS wall, whatever it's called. I don't know. It goes to show how inexperienced I am with TV. But you've instantly got to cut your promo, and you get 1 shot at it as well. If you fuck up the promo, you fucked it up, right? Yeah. And that was a real cool buzz to feel, of just like, got 1 chance of this, and like you know that you're not on screen, so you get to be yourself for a couple of seconds, gather your thoughts. What am I going to talk about? That's what I'm going to say. Okay, here we go. Right, boom, and then you get introed in, not too dissimilar to how you intro in when you do them backstage, and then you just got 1 take and you go, and that was really fun. And again, I was actually also really proud of what I did as well. I've spoken to a few different people about it, and yeah, it's a bit of an angst for myself and the people that I've spoken to about it, just that we just want to see it as well. We don't just want other people to see it. We'd like to see it back. We want to see what it looked like. We really do want to see it. So, but got to be patient, because it is about trying to get it on TV, and these things don't happen overnight. Yeah. A lot of people forget, and I wasn't there for this, is what I've been told. But a lot of people forget that's also what happened with the original World of Sport. They filmed the pilot, and it didn't end up on TV for a long time after that.
A year and a half. Yeah.
There's a lot of red tape to cut through, and it's being worked on from what we're being told, and that's all I can say, and that's all I know. It's not keeping anything secret. I really don't know any more than you do, John, at this point, really.
We'll keep our fingers crossed, and they've got the content. It's going to be used. It's going to air somewhere, but it's just a matter of when and how. Yes. But I'm sure it will air somewhere. I want to bring up this here, and of course, you were the face, or shall I say, the body, or maybe the elbow drop of the AA. And of course, we've seen you on the side of billboards, the side of vans. We've seen you on the TV advert and all over their social media campaign. How on earth, my friend, did you become the face of the AA?
By getting a message on Instagram. Simple as that.
But
I got
they reached out to you.
The person who messaged me was one of the agents that had been tasked with finding different wrestlers that fit the mold and that they were interested in looking at. That led to a phone call asking me whether I'd be interested in. I obviously was. I think probably everyone that got asked said yes. And then I just sat back and waited as it went through the sort of process of taking all of these different op choices and whittling them down and whittling them down and whittling them down. And then it came down to me and two others. And I'm lucky enough to actually, I think it was probably quite naughtily told who the other two were that it came down to. And they picked me. And I went into West London to a really very cool and nice, clean studio. It was really freshly new, like fresh new studio. And spent not even a full day there, just jumping off of a scissor lift onto two crash mats over and over and over and over again, while the very talented Jessica took picture after picture after picture of me using, I believe, the same sort of cameras they try and use in live sports. So like at football games and stuff. Jessica's the exclusive photographer for Fatboy Slim as well. Anytime Fatboy Slim gets a new album made or just has pictures taken, does a photo shoot, anything like that, it's Jessica that does it. So that was very cool because I'm a big Fatboy Slim fan.
So this photo was taken in midair. So that or was you kind of on a crash mat there? Did they cut out the background? Was that a midair shot, a mid-action shot?
Yeah, every single one of them was legitimately in midair. I'm not on any wires or anything. I wasn't jumping off that far. I was probably only jumping about 6 feet. Each fall was probably about a 6 foot drop. And yeah, they gave me 2 thick crash mats. So they were really lovely. They were really concerned about me all day. They were like, "Do you want to take a break?" After like 3, I was like, no, let's keep going. Like, have you got it? And so, because landing on a crash mat is nothing for what we normally do. So I was happy to do it. And I did different things. I did leg drops, and I think I even comically, I mean, it looked great in a picture, but it wouldn't look great in a match. I did the AJ Styles phenomenal forearm pose as well, which did make it onto a picture. If you find the the profile post that they used, it's me doing the AJ Styles phenomenal forearm again off the scissor list, and then I would just land that to feet on the crash mat, or just land on my knees or something. But yeah, it was a really fun day. And another interesting thing was that on that day I found out how absorbent my skin is, because they made up this water and gelatin so that the idea of it is they only have to spray it on you once or twice, and then it will go hard on your skin and settle as what looks like a sweat drop. And then all you do afterwards is just wash what feels like these little plastic droplets that are all over your skin. So like I say, yeah, it's like glycogen or whatever and water. And the guy the makeup artist had to keep spraying me like every second or third jump, because my skin would absorb the glycogen. My pores are so open and ready to take it in that even though it was jelly, my skin was like, yeah, I'll have some of that as well. It's mental. Shouldn't have been
moisturizer.
Maybe that's why my fake tan always looks good as well.
Now, we've worked with each other many times backstage, and I've interviewed you a whole ton for companies such as Southwest Wrestling. But I do remember very fondly this afternoon in the Cheltenham Town Hall when Bullet, the One Man Armory, pushed backstage interviewer Wrestling with Johners halfway across the Cheltenham Town Hall And I stopped skidding about 5 seconds after that shove. Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of pushed and pulled, and I've had a forearm uppercut from Heidi Katrina, and yeah, even Nathan Cruz has roughed me up, but I've never been pushed so hard as I was that afternoon by the One Man Armory. Thank you, Bullet.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do you remember what I said to you after I finished doing the interview?
I do not.
When you rolled about 4 yards away from me, I said, "What you were out of shot as soon as I pushed you. Why did you take that many rolls?" And it really goes to show that you want to get in that ring one day, Jonas. That's what it is that you just wanted to feel like a wrestler for those few seconds, and you were giving yourself a couple of bumps. And one day you're going to get in that ring, you're going to interview somebody, and you're going to take a choke slam, aren't you?
Well, some might say that I still have to kind of get you for that promo battle we had in the unit ASW South a couple of years ago, and yeah, maybe there's something down the road. But maybe I'll tap you after this and come down for some training sessions. But who knows? I am only 2 years away from being 50 years old. I don't know that I'm way too old to get into the wrestling ring, but maybe doing promos, backstage interviews is my limit.
Perfect time.
Never too old, eh? Never too old.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you about is this here. Now, you never gave me an answer when I DM'd you, but from a TNT show, you're pointing at the Wrestling Resurgence logo, saying something either to the crowd or under your breath, I don't know, clearly pointing at the logo. Now, please enlighten us, Bullet. What were you saying, or kind of what did you say to the Wrestling Resurgence logo there? What were you saying to the fans?
I did reply to you. I said, wait until you see the footage.
I haven't seen it. I don't subscribe.
I think it's because it's a Fight Network, so you might have to pay for it. But
I
pointed and then I it's really awkward telling you what I did. It's better if you just watch the footage. If I tell you what I did, it's going to make things awkward between us. But no, it's all I'll tell you. Hopefully one day you'll see it, and you'll see what I do on the footage, and it's positive. That's all I have to say. I don't do anything negative after I point at the Jonas sign. I do something very, very positive. So I
thought we were friends. So
yeah, well, you'll definitely feel like we're friends when you watch it. You'll understand what I'm saying, and maybe you can share it on your socials when you do finally go on the Fight Network and watch TNT and see exactly what I did. Because as long as the camera didn't cut away from me, which I know for certain there was a camera on me, and it looked like the red light was on. So yeah, they should have the footage of what I do once I point at the Jonas sign, and it is definitely better for you to see it than for me to explain it to you. I promise.
I'll take your word on it. And maybe we'll recap and revisit this in a couple of years' time. But I do want to talk about TNT because over the last couple of years, one thing that's very, very noticeable is that you have branched out, worked for a lot more promotions around the UK and Europe, as we established earlier. And I'd say 2023, 2024 were probably two of your busiest years in your wrestling career. But one company that you have branched out to, as we've already alluded to, is TNT Extreme Wrestling, or maybe their Ignition brand up in Liverpool. And you've had a couple of runs with them so far. And I think here's a bit of an exchange between yourself and the current TNT Ignition champion, MVK. And you'll be going up there again very, very soon, March the 29th. For the Level Up Men's Briefcase Scramble. You've already been announced as one of the 6. So, Bullet, tell us a little bit about your TNT Ignition, TNT Extreme experience so far, and what we have to look forward to at the end of the month.
Yeah, I had a couple of I had 2 random really ones where, so before SovPro got started, TNT were nice enough to put on a big restival thing. Which was just an all-day show essentially, and everyone got to come and put on a match there. So North put on a match there, and Wrestle Island, I think it was, they put on a match there. So did SovPro, and I was the SovPro match. So that was my first experience up at TNT, and funnily enough, it was the first time I actually met MVK. And then I went back up there again. When was it? My memory's gone.
Your match against MVK, that was in January, I think,
No,
wasn't
it was before that. I did another one before that as well.
it? You did, yeah.
Who did I wrestle, John? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but that's okay. We can gloss over this.
I think because I think it was on the Extreme show. I think when I went up the next time, it was on the Extreme show. God, why can't I remember? Oh yes. I had a very quick 2 matches with Critchy, who was cutting a promo, and I came out and claymored his head off and pinned him 1, 2, 3. And then I wrestled one of the tag lads. I always
one of the quintessential boys.
One of the quintessential boys. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of a longer match with him. And then that happened, and then there wasn't a lot after that. But there was communication between myself and TNT, and with Jay and stuff. And whereas I've just gone back up and done the match with MVK, and I'm really grateful to Jay. And I told him that the fact that he's keeping me, he's kept me in mind for so long. And hasn't given up on me, because there's been times where he's tried to put me in, I've already been busy and I've really wanted to do a show, and I was already working somewhere else, so I couldn't go up and see him and stuff. And we've made it work, and so we're hopefully moving on to consistently me being up at TNT, because I love it. I think it's hilarious as a Manchester United fan how much I love Liverpool. I hate the club, but I don't hate the town. I really love Liverpool. I think it's a fantastic city. I love visiting there. I love the architecture, and I love the audience as well. Like, every time I've been to TNT, I've gone there as a heel and I've left as a babyface. Every single time. They just take to me, and I don't know why, but whatever. I'm not gonna question it. I love it, and they're really great. And I really love that. I liked the Extreme crowd, which was the adults only. They were all very cool, very loud, very lively. But I really liked the family show that we did for Ignition, and I'm very proud to be on those Ignition shows. I think they really are fantastic. The noise level that that crowd brings, the kids as well as the adults, because people come to both. There's plenty of people that I stayed for the Extreme show because I traveled with Oscar Harding that day, and so he was reffing both shows, and I stayed and watched the Extreme show. And so many people, so many grown-ups that were at the Ignition show were, they're at the Extreme show, I recognized from being in the audience for the Ignition show as well. And it's a great promotion, great team. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a team. That's what it feels like. It's sort of similar to some of my other more favorite places to work, where it just feels like a camaraderie thing backstage. And I really liked it. It was, and I do hope to, like we said, I'm up there on the 29th, and I hopefully will be up there more and more and more this year. And because it's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure going up to TNT.
1000%. And I was on the phone to Jay earlier on this afternoon. Such a top guy, and I can't wait to go up there again myself. Let's jump to some questions, because I've got to say Megan has been very, very patient. First of all, let's go Bullet. Of course, Megan, Mega Storm, one of the ASW South trainees, of course. And she asks, hey, Bullet, who is your dream opponent this year to go against? Now, you face some of the biggest and the best names from the UK and further afield throughout your career, Bullets. But anybody that stands out in 2025 that you'd like to kind of tick off your bucket list of dream opponents?
Cara Noir.
Good choice.
Because I get to wrestle so many other people. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't mean one answer to that question is pretty much everyone that I wrestle all the time, continue to keep wrestling them. There's certain people like Lewis Basham that I'd like to wrestle on a bigger stage. But I really enjoyed my match with Tom Dawkins.
Yes.
And I never got to wrestle Cara Noir, and I want to wrestle Cara Noir. I don't want to fucking spit egg in each other's mouth. We'll leave that out. But I want to have a really, really good match with Cara Noir.
Yeah. And you would have been one of a few people to have wrestled Tom Dawkins and Cara Noir if it ever happens. So that'll be a pretty cool full circle moment. And we've got Trevor watching us live at home. Bullet, you are awesome. And back to Megan, and she asks, who would you like to defend your ASW South Heavyweight Championship title against? So I know that a certain Nathan Angel, am I right in thinking that last month he won a certain briefcase that entitles him to a shot at a championship that he once held, all very briefly, until you cashed in your shot at the belt? But anybody in particular in the ASW South locker room that you'd like to defend your championship against, even if it is a certain Nathan Angel?
Dan Rodman.
Good choice. Top guy. There we go. And speaking of Nathan Angel, who is that over your right-hand shoulder on your wall there? You seem to have a certain Nathan Angel calendar, if I'm not mistaken.
That's me.
That's you.
A very beautiful son of me. But yes, that is the Nathan Angel calendar, which should be in should really have been updated with a new 2025 one. But he's too busy now, isn't he? Too busy being Mr. England over in Thailand and doing all of his international travel as well. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. He told me he was going to get a 2025 calendar out, and he never did. But never mind. I'm sure he's been a very, very busy boy. But Bullet, as we get to the end of this fantastic interview 380 and our second chat with Bullet. And if you wanted more of an origin story of the One Man Armory, then go back and check out our original interview from 2 years ago. This was kind of more of a recap from the last couple of years and what he's been up to in 23, 24, going into 2025. But for any of my listeners at home, or anybody that might just be finding out who Bullet is and wants to learn more, or wants to just reach out and say hi, where can they do so on your socials, my friend? And if it helps, I've got your X and your Instagram scrolling along the bottom.
It's literally just that. It's just that Bullet Benno. The best and easiest way to get hold of me is through Instagram. I'm still just as crap at my X as I was 2 years ago. And I do check my Facebook more often than I check my X, but I check my Instagram the most. So if anyone does need to reach out to me for anything, then that's the place to go, is at Bullet Benno at Instagram.
There we go. But if you've got any parting words, any final words from the One Man Armory Bullet to sign us off this episode of Wrestling Resurgence, as a returning guest, of course, to anybody that might be watching at home, any final words, any parting words from the One Man Armory?
Thank you for having me back on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again, as it always is whenever I see you on shows. I hope I see you again in person on a show very soon. I still think you're the man at this. I still think that you're one of the leaders for podcasts in British wrestling. And yeah, anyone who's listening to this, if for some shocking reason you've just come on to listen to me talk, go and listen to John as talk to other people, because all the interviews are fantastic.
There we go. Well, thank you very much. And I can't wait to shake your hand and thank you next time I see you at whatever show that might be. But the One Man Armory Bullet, thank you so much for being a fantastic returning guest. We'll get you back on within the next 2 or 3 years, but we'll see you very soon, my friend. And thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, Jonas. Thank you very much.